Eventually, even those high above, including Whis, began to dissolve and disappear as though their existence had always been temporary. Despite all his cruelty, Zardok could not bear to watch the scene. Something inside his chest broke without making a sound. Even after everything, Zardok murmured to himself, "I never wanted it to end like this for them." Bargita glanced at his father, his voice low. Then why let it happen at all? Zardok's jaw tightened. Because some things once set into motion can no longer be stopped, only endured. Whis looked toward his companions and with his usual calm smile spoke his final words. "Vegeta, Bargita, my role is over. Finish what remains. Save this world from their destruction. Give Goku my regards. Goodbye." Bardock's fists clenched so hard they trembled. "Whis, we won't let your sacrifice mean nothing, I swear it." Vegeta still fused as Bargita growled through gritted teeth. "You expect us to just watch you vanish? Fight it, damn you." Whis' smile never faltered, even as his form grew fainter. Some battles were never meant to be won, young prince, only accepted. In the meantime, the fusion Bargita could do nothing but scream in rage. "This isn't how it ends," Bargita roared into the emptiness. "I refuse to accept this." It was a scream lost in the endless void. A few moments later, the portal began to move again. It slowly opened, almost as if it were savoring the tension. Terrifying smoke poured out of it. Then, suddenly, a massive violet aura covered the entire sky. And from within it, a gigantic, horrifying creature emerged. Its body was shrouded in darkness. The fractures surrounding the nearby planets began to split apart, as though this entity possessed a level of power unlike anything history had ever known. Two glowing violet eyes emerged from the heart of the darkness. Anyone who looked into them felt their very soul recoil in fear. Time itself bent, space submitted. The gods of destruction stood completely frozen. Quitella's voice came out cracked and hollow. "Beerus, tell me you have a plan. Tell me something." Belmod, usually composed, could only shake his head slowly. "There is no plan for something like this. There never was." Beerus could not find a single word to speak because the only instinct he had left was survival. Gohan suddenly gasped in shock. "That can't be," he stammered, his eyes wide with disbelief. Not because of the creature's power, but because of the terrifying realization that everything he thought he knew about this entity had been a lie. "Everything," Gohan whispered to himself. "Everything he ever told us was a lie." As for Goku, he stood alone at the front, silent, his back straight, his hands trembling slightly, and his expression said only one thing. This was no longer a fight. This was the beginning of true hell. Across the vast emptiness surrounding the shattered glass surface, the bodies of the gods of destruction were scattered across the golden-green rocks, motionless like corpses thrown aside by the Daishin Khan's last explosion. Some lay stretched out, their expressions frozen. Others were half buried beneath the wreckage, while dark blood hung motionless in the void. There was no sound left. Only a deep, distant hum, like the universe itself was groaning in pain. At the center of it all, Gohan was on his knees. His chest rose and fell violently as his eyes searched through the rising dust and suspended debris for a single figure: his father. His fist trembled. His lips quivered. Fear consumed his heart as he whispered, "Dad, where are you?" He forced himself to shout louder, his voice cracking against the silence. "Dad, answer me! Please, not like this!" No response came. Only the hum of the broken universe answered him back. Slowly, heavily, the dust began to clear. And then, there was nothing. Gohan's hands dug into the shattered ground beneath him. No, this can't be it. He wouldn't just disappear, not after everything. But a short distance away, Goku stood with his body radiating an unstable celestial white light. Facing him was the Daishinkan, surrounded by a dense violet aura that twisted around his body like living poison. "You're still standing," the Daishinkan said, his voice devoid of any warmth. Impressive for an insect. Goku's breathing was ragged, but his eyes never wavered. "I told you already, I'm not finished, not until every single person you hurt gets justice." The Daishinkan's lips curled into something between amusement and contempt. Justice, such a fragile little word for someone standing at the edge of oblivion. For a single moment, there was silence, just enough time to take one last breath before hell began. Then Goku and the Daishinkan charged. They sprinted and leapt across the shattered golden rocks suspended throughout space, constantly shifting direction and momentum. Every step pulverized whatever lay beneath them. Every impact made the dimension itself tremble. They collided at the center like two blazing arrows. The impact released a shockwave that tore through space, twisting the surrounding rocks like a raging ocean. But what happened next was faster than thought itself. In a single flash, the Daishinkan seized Goku by the head and buried him beneath a brutal barrage of savage blows. "Is this the power that terrified my own children?" the Daishinkan snarled between strikes. "Pathetic. You're nothing more than noise before silence." Every punch tore more light from Goku's body. Every strike made it feel as though his very soul was being knocked out of place. Goku's vision blurred, yet through the haze, he forced out through gritted teeth, "Noise or not, I'm still standing." Far below, Gohan's eyes finally caught sight of the battle raging above the debris field. His breath caught in his throat. "Dad!" he screamed, pushing himself up despite his shattered body. "Hold on, I'm coming!" But even as he tried to rise, his legs gave out beneath him, and all he could do was watch, helpless as his father was pulled deeper into the storm of violet light and violence. The Daishinkan grabbed Goku by the throat, launched himself forward and slammed him into an enormous mass of golden glass. The rock exploded into thousands of fragments as Goku's body tore straight through it like a shattered meteor. Gohan's eyes widened. A heavy tear rolled down his face. Never before had he seen his father humiliated like this. His heart screamed, but no sound came out. "Dad!" Gohan finally managed to whisper, his voice hollow with disbelief. "Get up! Please get up!" One of the fallen gods of destruction, barely conscious nearby, murmured, "Even Goku, even he can't stand against something like this." Goku lay among the wreckage, struggling to rise as blood poured from his body. The Daishinkan floated above him, unbothered, his voice carrying effortless cruelty. "Stay down. It would be the wisest thing you've done all day." Then, furious, he forced himself back to his feet. "Wisdom," Goku muttered through clenched teeth, "is not something I was known for." The Daishinkan almost laughed. "No. Recklessness, however, seems to run deep in your blood." A brief silence followed, the silence before the storm. Slowly, Goku raised his head. His eyes ignited. His breathing became steady again. He extended one hand. A dense energy began gathering in his palm, different from anything they had ever seen before. The Daishinkan tilted his head, curiosity briefly cutting through his contempt. "And what exactly do you think you're doing now, Saiyan?" A slight smile appeared on Goku's face as he spoke in a low but firm voice. "Very well. You're not the only one who knows how to use a staff." He stepped forward as the light around him condensed. You know, I've been using a staff for more than 20 years. The Daishinkan's expression flickered with something close to genuine surprise. A relic weapon in the hands of an insect? How fitting an end this will make. We'll see whose end it really is, Goku answered, his voice steady despite the blood dripping from his lips. The energy weapon shifted through several different forms before finally stabilizing into a long staff. Space itself trembled as Goku declared, "This is what I know best." He raised his hand. The staff became razor-sharp, vibrating with overwhelming energy. Are you ready? Because now, the legendary battle begins. The Daishinkan's aura flared violently in response. Then don't waste my time with hesitation. The clash exploded. Their bodies collided, vanished, and reappeared in flashes of light. The sounds of their impacts became a relentless, insane rhythm. Golden light crashed against violet energy, tearing through the very fabric of existence. Goku maneuvered. He struck. He charged. You move well, the Daishinkan admitted coldly, deflecting strike after strike. But movement alone has never won a war. Then maybe it's time you learned something new, Goku shot back, pressing forward without hesitation. But the Daishinkan answered with cold brutality, reading every movement before Goku could even complete it and breaking his rhythm again and again. Goku roared and focused everything he had into a single attack. Then, let's see if this changes your mind. But the Daishinkan tore straight through the assault. He seized Goku's wrist, twisted his body, then crushed him beneath a series of precise, devastating strikes before launching him across the void. Predictable, the Daishinkan said flatly, watching Goku's body fly. Just like every warrior before you. Goku smashed through one rock after another, each impact becoming another stop in an endless journey of pain. Ah! Finally, Goku crashed down. The light surrounding his body began to fade. His body collapsed among the shattered fragments as his breathing became weak and uneven. Gohan could only watch, his fists slamming into the ground beside him. No, not like this. Dad, you promised you'd never fall like this. Nearby, one of the surviving angels whispered in despair, "If even he cannot win, then nothing in this universe can." It was a brutal defeat, and once again, the void fell silent. Gohan cried out, his fear reaching its breaking point. "Dad! Someone, anyone, help him!" The gods of destruction no longer understood what they were witnessing. Beerus spoke in a trembling voice. "The Dainin's final form is truly terrifying." A faint, painful smile crossed his face. "At least, we won." Quitella turned to him sharply, his voice cracking with disbelief. "Won? Look around you, Beerus. Does any of this look like winning to you?" Beerus didn't answer. His silence said more than any words could have. Atop what remained of the palace surface, which could no longer truly be called a palace, enormous slabs of cracked golden glass floated through the cosmic void, covered in frost and somehow strong enough to withstand the power of the Eternal King. Zardok stood perfectly still. His shoulders were tense. His eyes remained fixed ahead, as though time itself had stopped out of respect. Bardock, standing beside him, whispered, "Father, who exactly are we facing?" Zardok's voice was low, almost reverent. "Someone who existed long before the concept of gods and destruction ever did." More than a mile away stood the Eternal King, Zeno's father, a being whose full power had never been recorded in any cosmic archive. His body remained motionless. His expression was completely neutral. There was no aura, no explosion of energy. And yet, his mere presence weighed heavier than an entire galaxy. Without saying a word, Ilera used her power to pull Zeno farther back. "Stay close to me," she murmured softly. "Whatever happens next, you must not go near this." Zeno's small voice trembled. "Ilera? Is he going to hurt Zardok too?" Ilera didn't answer. Her silence was answer enough. Her most primitive instincts screamed that whatever was about to happen was not something she had any right to witness from up close. The fusion, Vegeta stood tense, his fist trembling and his teeth clenched. "I've fought gods. I've fought monsters born from nightmares. But this feeling is different." For the first time, he realized that all the power within him meant absolutely nothing compared to what was coming. Absolute silence took over. Then, for the first time in millions of years, the Eternal King spoke from his throne. "Zardok." His voice was deep and low, but it cut through the void like a blade. The simple act of speaking Zardok's name caused the glass beneath everyone's feet to crack. "Countless ages have passed. Universes have shattered. And yet you still stand before me with those same eyes." Zardok did not smile. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, as though awakening an ancient memory filled with destruction. "Because you still haven't been defeated, and because our mistake has not yet been corrected." The Eternal King's gaze did not waver. "Mistake? Is that truly what you call it now after all this time?"
"Call it whatever helps you sleep," Zardok replied evenly. "The truth remains the same no matter the name given to it." Then Zardok stared directly at him. "Tell me, are you still hiding behind that mask?" The Eternal King's expression remained unreadable, though something in the air around him grew heavier still. "The mask was never meant to hide me, Zardok. It was meant to protect the rest of you from what lies beneath it." For the briefest moment, Zardok's composure cracked. "Protect us, or protect yourself from what you became." Silence stretched between them, thick enough to suffocate every soul watching. Zeno's eyes widened in terror. "Ilera, what's happening? Why does everything feel like it's stopping?" Ilera held him tighter without looking away from the battle. "Because something is happening that even I don't have words for, my lord." This was not a conversation between two enemies exchanging threats. It was the confrontation of two ancient beings who had known each other before the laws of existence themselves had even been created. The Eternal King took a single step forward. At that exact moment, the golden glass world cracked apart. There was no explosion, only a silent rupture, as though reality itself had bowed before his movement. Zardok disappeared. No flash, no burst of speed, no trace. "Father!" Bardock shouted, his voice swallowed instantly by the silence that followed. Then, suddenly, two fists collided at the heart of the void. The impact produced no explosion. Instead, it erased sound itself. The vibrations stopped, the energy froze, and for one brief instant, everything became a pure white void. Then, the world violently returned. Zardok was launched backwards, crashing through dozens of massive glass platforms. But in midair, he twisted his body, stabilized himself, and immediately counterattacked. "You haven't changed at all," Zardok growled through the impact, "still hiding your true strength even now." His knee tore through the void, but the Eternal King caught it with one hand. "And you still rely on rage instead of clarity," the Eternal King replied, calmly, his grip tightening. With nothing more than a slight squeeze, Zardok's knee collapsed.
It began to disintegrate as though he had struck an immovable mountain. Zardok let out a strangled gasp, refusing to fall. "That's impossible!" Ilera swallowed hard. For the first time since the moment she had been born, she felt something she had never truly known before: real fear. Even Zardok, even someone like him, is nothing more than a toy in his hands? When Zeno turned around, he saw a terrifying figure who had been watching them since the beginning of the battle. It was Bargita. "Come to watch the show?" Bargita sneered, cracking his knuckles. "Or came to die alongside your precious king?" Bargita clapped his hands together once. The glass barriers exploded, but Ilera disappeared and instantly reappeared in front of him. "You dare threaten my lord in my presence?" she said, her voice devoid of any warmth. With a single motion, she hurled a small frozen planet directly at him. Bargita crashed into it and was sent flying an unimaginable distance away. "Is that supposed to scare me?" Bargita coughed out, forcing himself upright despite the frost spreading across his body. The cold immediately crawled beneath his feet, spreading through his entire body. Then, moving at a speed he had never witnessed before,
Ilera appeared directly in front of him, calm, silent, surrounded by a dense frozen mist. Snowflakes slowly circled her like silent crowns. There was no anger in her eyes, only cold judgment. Then she spoke in a voice as cold as death itself. "Temporary fusion, artificial power, inevitable hunger." "You speak as if you understand strength," Bargita snarled, forcing a grin despite the frostbite creeping up his arms. "But power like mine doesn't fade just because you will it to." "Power built on borrowed time always fades," Ilera replied without hesitation. "You simply haven't reached your limit yet." Despite the unbearable cold, Bargita smiled. Steam escaped from his mouth with every breath. "Then let's find out exactly where that limit is," he said, his aura flaring violently against the freezing mist surrounding them. "The true heat is born under pressure." The ground exploded beneath the ice. The two vanished, then reappeared in the middle of the giant ice soul. Blinding impacts echoed as every strike shattered the surrounding crystals. "You fight well for something so temporary," Ilera said coldly. Her voice barely rose above the shattering crystals. "Temporary or not," Bargita shot back, "I'll still be standing when this ice of yours finally cracks." Every movement Ilera made left a frozen trail that seemed to freeze space itself. She extended her hand. Chains of ice formed and wrapped around Bargita's arm. "Struggling only tightens the grip," she said flatly, watching him strain against the frost. "Accept it and the pain ends faster." The pressure intensified, the cold overwhelmed the fusion, and a freezing energy seeped into his body. He screamed, but he endured. "I didn't come this far," Bargita growled through clenched teeth, "just to be frozen into a statue." Gathering every ounce of his willpower, he shattered the ice in an unstable explosion. Shards of frost scattered like stars. For the first time, he took a step back, and the fog surrounding her grew even denser. She said in a terrifyingly calm voice, "Your resistance changes nothing about the level of my cold." "Then maybe it's time you felt some heat of your own," Bargita snarled, his aura flaring violently against the mist. She raised her foot and slammed it into the ground. Everything froze in a single instant. The air, the light, the sound, and even the heartbeat of the fusion. The ice climbed up his legs, leaving him no way out. The entire atmosphere became freezing cold. "This ends now," Ilera said quietly, watching without a trace of hesitation.
Then both of his legs shattered at once, and he collapsed, struggling to breathe as if he were dying. "Zardok, Vegeta," Bargita rasped through the agony. "We can't lose here, not after everything we've already sacrificed." She walked toward him with absolute confidence, preparing to finish him with a single strike. Bargita then expelled a terrifying sphere of energy from his mouth and fired it directly at Ilera's face. "I told you," he gasped. "Power like mine doesn't fade that easily." She collapsed beside him, her face half disfigured and without a sound. Bargita remained standing in the middle of the ice, the fusion slowly falling apart. His final words faded among the shattered crystals. "Even if this body breaks apart, at least we made her bleed." Only a few moments remained before Zardok and Vegeta died within this body. He closed his eyes. A tear rolled down, confirming that this battle had been decided from the very first moment by their shared fate. The Eternal King raised his other hand and touched Zardok's chest with only 2 fingers. "You still believe struggle changes outcome," the Eternal King said quietly. "It never has. Not once in all the ages I've watched you fight." "Then let this be the age that proves you wrong," Zardok forced out through gritted teeth. At that instant, cracks spread across Zardok's body, not wounds, but golden fractures within his very being. If it had been the body of an ordinary warrior, it would have exploded into dust in less than a second. But Zardok regenerated at a blinding speed, despite the crushing pain overwhelming him. "Still standing," the Eternal King observed, something almost like respect flickering across his unreadable face. "Call it whatever you like," Zardok answered, forcing himself back to his full height, despite the golden cracks still healing across his chest. Zardok laughed, a low, exhausted laugh, but one filled with defiance. "You're making the same mistake again. You rely on your golden power, and you forget that I am the King of Blood." "A title," the Eternal King replied coldly, "does not frighten me, no matter how many corpses you built it upon." "Then let's see if it frightens you once it's wrapped around your throat," Zardok snarled back. Suddenly, a dark energy burst from Zardok's abdomen. It was not an aura, but a vortex born from his blood world. Terrifying screams erupted, the cries of his ancient victims, all transformed into a bloodthirsty power. A black hand made of blood emerged, grabbing the Eternal King and beginning to pull him into the vortex. For the first time, that creature showed a moment of weakness. Step by step, its feet began to slide, and that alone was enough to freeze space. Zeno, the only one still standing, watched, drenched in sweat and overwhelmed by the darkest of emotions. Is he actually winning?" Zeno whispered to himself, unable to look away. The Eternal King stared at Zardok. Something changed in his eyes. "So, you're no longer the one you used to be." "No," Zardok agreed, his voice low and steady despite the strain of holding the vortex together. "I stopped being that broken man the moment I decided your reign would end." He severed his own hand and retreated as fast as possible, putting as much distance as he could between himself and Zardok. Then he regenerated his arm using his golden power. A wise retreat for a king who claims to fear nothing. Zardok smiled. His aura and his appearance changed in an instant. A terror spread all the way to the deepest depths beneath the palace. The two vanished simultaneously. Then they reappeared directly above one another, forehead against forehead. A pressure wave exploded, tearing apart the entire palace and hurling golden glass fragments from that world, each as large as continents, into space. Below, Gohan looked up. He felt the impact. His heart tightened. "Whatever's happening up there," Gohan muttered, gritting his teeth. "I don't have time to wait and watch." He rushed toward his father, who was lying on the ground, and shielded him from the falling golden glass shards. Meanwhile, Dai, convinced that he had already won, remained completely captivated by what was happening in the sky, so much so that he failed to notice Gohan's movement. "Dad, you have to drink this." Gohan pressed his hand and made him swallow a mouthful of Zardok's blood flowing through his veins. "Come on," Gohan whispered urgently, cradling his father's head. "You've never given up before. Don't start now." The battle resumed high above. For the first time, the Eternal King removed his mask. Silence swept across the void as his true face was finally revealed. Zardok declared with majesty, "You took far too long to show your face."
"Perhaps," the Eternal King said quietly, his voice now carrying a weight none had heard before. "I simply hoped I would never have to show it to you again." Zardok's eyes narrowed. "Then you hoped for something that was never going to happen." The terrifying creature burst into a chilling laugh. "How long has it been, Zardok, and still you insist on standing against me as if the outcome could ever change?" Zeno lowered his head, refusing to look at his father. He did not want to remember that his true face was also hidden within that small body by his father's power. "Please stop," Zeno whispered to himself, tears welling in his eyes. "I don't want to see either of you like this." The Eternal King attacked, fast, precise. Every strike changed the direction of gravity, reversed up and down, turned right into left, shattering Zardok's perception of space. "You still fight like a god who has forgotten what it means to bleed," Zardok spat, forcing his body to keep up despite the disorientation. Zardok took a blow to the shoulder. His arm vanished for a moment before struggling to return to existence. He took a deep breath, blood flowing from his mouth, but he did not step back. "That's why we became frozen, because continuing our battle meant the end of everything." The Eternal King stepped closer, his shadow swallowing the light. "And that's exactly what will happen now." "Then so be it," Zardok growled, wiping the blood from his lips. "I'd rather end existence itself than watch you rule over it any longer." Their fists collided once again, but this time something changed. The world of golden glass began to crack from within, not because of their strength, but because the laws themselves could no longer endure their coexistence. At that moment, everyone understood a terrifying truth. This battle was not about victory, but about deciding which of the two could continue living in this world after the other's death. Because the one who survived would be left without a rival, a future that neither of them could accept. "Do you understand now?" the Eternal King asked, his voice heavy with something almost like sorrow. "There was never a version of this story where we both walked away." "I understood that a long time ago," Zardok answered, steadying himself despite his shattered arm. "I simply refused to accept it." The Eternal King slowly raised his hand and said in a voice that made existence itself tremble, "You know our battle will last forever, and neither of us wants to remain frozen for eternity, so we finish what should have ended millions of years ago," Zardok interrupted, his voice steady despite the storm raging around him. Zardok clenched his fist, blood flowing, his eyes burning with legendary determination. "Then let's end it all."
One final exchange, the Eternal King said quietly, to decide what remains after everything else is gone. Agreed, Zardok replied. Let history remember this as the moment one of us finally fell. At that very instant, they charged toward each other. It was neither speed, nor energy, nor auras, but two unmatched wills colliding. Their attacks met at a single point, a point the laws themselves could not withstand. The world of golden glass exploded completely, and the void fell into deadly silence. Then, everything came to a stop. At the bottom of what remained of the palace, where nothing was left but floating debris above an unstable void, Goku's body finally moved. The blood Gohan had poured into his mouth was no ordinary blood. Zardok's blood raged through his veins like a storm. It healed, rebuilt, and awakened something deeper than the body itself.
His breathing became steady again. His muscles tightened and his eyes slowly opened. Gohan, with tears still clinging to his eyes, said in a trembling voice, "Come on, Dad! Come on!" Goku's fingers twitched first, then curled slowly into a fist. "Gohan," he rasped, "is that really you?" "It's me, Dad. I'm right here," Gohan said, gripping his father's hand tightly. "Please, just keep breathing." "This blood allowed me to keep fighting. Without it, I would have fallen against the angels and the gods of destruction, but it isn't enough against that creature over there. Its power freezes the heart." Goku tried to stand, bracing himself against the cracked ground, and said with a faint smile despite the pain, "You're okay, Gohan. That's all that matters to me. I'm going to get up and finish off that insolent Daikan." "Dad, no!" Gohan started, but Goku was already pushing himself further upright, defiant even through the pain. Gohan suddenly stepped in front of him to stop him, his voice trembling. "No, you can't do it. His power surpasses yours. Even if we fight him together, we'll be defeated." "Then what do you suggest we do?" Goku asked, his breathing still ragged. "Sit here and wait for him to finish us off?" A heavy silence settled over them. Then Gohan said with deadly calm, "Unless..." Goku looked at him, and at that very moment, they both spoke the same word: fusion. A small, exhausted laugh escaped Goku. "Look at you, reading my mind before I even finish the thought." "I learned from the best," Gohan replied, managing a faint smile despite everything. Several kilometers away, the Daikan suddenly opened his eyes. A cold smile spread across his face as he said, "Didn't I kill that rat? It seems he's not dead yet." Interesting. He charged forward, tearing through the winds towards the source of the energy. "Let's see how much of you is actually left to kill this time," the Daikan muttered coldly as he closed the distance. But before he could reach his target, the pressure turned against him. A power that existence itself had never known before erupted. The most powerful fusion in Saiyan history, Goku's final form of pure luminous Ultra Instinct merged with Gohan's royal Ultra Instinct. A new entity was born. One name, two souls, one will. Gokaron. The Daikan froze in place. For the first time in his life, he could not find the words to describe that power. What exactly are you?" the Daikan finally managed, his voice uncharacteristically unsteady. Gokaron's voice came out layered. Both Goku's warmth and Gohan's sharpness merged into one. "The answer to every mistake you thought you'd already won." The fusion did not rush forward. It created weapons from its energy in several different forms, tested them, dismissed them, and then came to a stop. "No more running," Gokaron said calmly. "This ends here." Sharp golden claws grew from his hands, and he said with terrifying calm,
This will be perfect to finish him. Then finish it, the Daikon rasped, still defiant even in defeat. Do you truly think a single death will erase everything I've done? No, Gokaron answered evenly, but it will make sure you never do it again. The Daishin Khan returned, flying with what remained of his majesty, but this time the fusion grabbed him by the head. There was no scream, no resistance, as if all of his energy had been drained from his body. A small blade of energy formed in Gokaron's hand, and the strike was delivered. The head fell. It rolled away from the body. Gokaron stepped forward, picked up the head with dignity, and placed it on the chest of the fallen body out of respect for the most powerful opponent he had ever faced. You were the strongest I have ever fought, Gokaron said quietly, looking down at the fallen form. That much I will never deny.
But the end had not yet come. Space trembled. A black hole appeared in the sky, pulling everything into it, in unprecedented, irresistible force. What is this now? Gokaron muttered, bracing himself against the sudden pull. Haven't we earned even a moment of peace? The palace disappeared. When the light returned, there was no body, no trace, no energy. The golden world was gone, leaving only a motionless void. A black hole had just been born, consuming everything, confirming that two legends had chosen the same end. Zeno, the closest to it, was mercilessly pulled toward a place from which no one returns. "No! Someone help him!" a distant voice cried out, but no one was close enough to reach in time. All that remained was a small frozen planet, slowly disintegrating. The fusion ran, searching until it caught sight of the Bargita fusion being pulled toward the void. "Hold on!" Gokaron shouted, pushing through the pull with everything he had left. "I didn't come this far to lose anyone else." He grabbed it at the very last moment. "Got you," he breathed, pulling the fusion back from the edge of oblivion. He took out the red sphere Bulma had given him on Zardok's recommendation, while the white sphere remained fused into his royal armor. "Let's go home," Gokaron said softly. "Everyone deserves that much at least." Everyone disappeared to Earth. A small house in the heart of a vast forest. Bulma's emergency shelter had been spared from the destruction of the city. Fireworks, children playing, laughter had returned. Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, and even Bardock had become one of them. Goku laughed and said, "Dad, the meat from the tail is delicious. You should try it." Bardock took a bite, chewing thoughtfully before smiling. "Not bad for a planet I once thought was beneath us." "See, Earth's not so bad after all," Goku said, grinning ear to ear.
Vegeta, standing a short distance away with his arms crossed, scoffed. "Don't get used to this peace, Kakarot. Something always comes to ruin it." "Maybe," Goku shrugged, "but for tonight, let's just enjoy it." Near the doorway, Piccolo sat, watching in silence. Bardock said to him, "Why don't you join them?" Piccolo replied calmly, "I'm still not used to it, even though I've lived here for a long time." "Family isn't something you get used to," Bardock said gently. "It's something you simply choose to stay close to." He looked at Gohan, who was smiling. Then he added, "His smile, that's what makes me happy." Bardock smiled slightly. "As for me, I missed my son. Seeing him from here is enough for me." Gohan, catching his grandfather's gaze from across the yard, raised a hand and waved. "Grandpa, come eat with us." Bardock chuckled softly under his breath. "Perhaps, just this once." He rose from his seat and walked toward the fire, toward his family, toward the peace they had all fought so hard to protect.